Yes, ladies and gentlemen, don't adjust your sets. Yes, it is I, the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. Welcome back to the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Thank you. Oh, you guys are too much. You guys are too much. Relax. It's okay. I know. Thank you. You guys are really too much. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to F4L Headquarters Podcast. I'm your host, the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. It's funny how life works. I was actually about to hit record on today's show when I got a phone call from someone who wants to hire the icon, and that's exciting to be offered more work on top of whatever else I do. So thank you to them. On top of everything else that I do. This is very exciting, and they actually are very much fond of the podcast as well, so that was awesome. So let's start at the top things first. So those people who got to, I want to say a really quick thank you again to our special guest on last edition, Gabriel Sajes. He did a fantastic job. Didn't he do a fantastic job last time? I know, ladies, relax. I'm sure he's flattered. Yep. Okay, relax. I'm telling you, say a dude's name and they go crazy. Am I right? See, the guys get it anyway. All right, cool. And just so people know, I'm very happy to say that the video portion of that interview from last time is up. Unfortunately, some of it was we lost a little bit of the audio because of some technical issues, and unfortunately we lost the very beginning of the interview. We didn't lose too much, but it was a fantastic job, and he's a rising star in the music world, and we believe in him. You know, he mentioned he might want to get into the acting world. You know, I could see him being in some movies or some television show. Very entertaining, very nice, polite young man. And he's very charismatic, which is a good thing. So, yeah, so we thank, again, we want to thank Gabriel for showing up last time and showing up and taking some time with us. And his interview is up now on the F4L Headquarters Podcast and on my main YouTube channel. And I've sent him a copy of it as well, so he gets to enjoy it as well. Ladies, relax. You can go see Gabriel. He's out in Tennessee, I believe, right now, so I'm sure he loves to meet his fans. Okay, relax. Even he doesn't want that scariness. All right, folks, here we are, the F4L Headquarters. Okay, so today's show is a bit of a random mix, and my friends the ants are going to be taking us all over the place, and whatnot, as we have. Some people have their sidekicks on their shows. Some people have, when he had Johnny Carson had Ed McMahon, and of course Conan O'Brien had Andy Richter. Jay Leno had Kevin Eubanks. I got singing, talking ants. So, ants, why don't you take us to our film reviews for the first one? I feel like Dr. Doolittle sometimes when it comes to dealing with ants and all the other things that I get to deal with. So we're going to start with doing a film review. I want to talk about a new movie I just got to see. It's a movie called The Prisoner's Daughter. What a fantastic film. First of all, let me start off with that. By starting off with that, that's a pretty high standards. If something has been, start off with it's a fantastic movie or whatever. But it was a fantastically done movie. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and tell you some people who were in it, and maybe we'll figure out just why it was so great. I think when I start saying some of the people who were involved in this film, you'll probably understand why it was so awesome. I think this kind of a movie, I'm surprised no one's tried this kind of thing before. I think it's a very relatable storyline. So let me read you guys the synopsis. A father fights for the love of his daughter and grandson after serving 12 years in prison. So to be fair, this film is not a pretty movie, if we're saying that. It deals with a lot of dark subject matter. It deals with a lot of gritty, real-life issues that people deal with. Truth be told, a lot of people who are in various different positions in different times in their lives deal with things that this movie tackles in one film. There's so much going on that it is hard to kind of pinpoint like really where the kind of starting and the ending goes. But let's start with the director, Catherine Hardwicke. She did a fantastic job directing this piece, written by Mark Bacci, very talented guy as well. Both together, fantastic unit there. Then, when we talk about the cast, holy cow, the cast. This cast is stacked. In all honesty, when you cast, I want to point out something here. When you cast people like this, right, and when you cast a film, if everyone... there's an old saying that, a cast can't save a movie. It doesn't matter how big or small the movie is, a cast can't save it. This is not true. This cast doesn't seem to have a lot of people in it, but who they do have in it does really well. Everyone plays their parts to perfection. Let's talk about the main cast. Kate Beckinsale plays a single mother. She plays a mother who is in a outs with her ex-husband, I guess we're alluding to. Kate Beckinsale, the legendary Kate Beckinsale, playing a single mother to Christopher Convery. So you guys have watched this show, I've listened to the show several times, and you guys heard me sing the praises of both Christopher and Christian Convery. And again, to those casting directors out there, I don't know why no one's thought about casting the two cousins together. That would be a money idea, but that's just me. Then again, why am I telling you to do that? I'll just do that myself when I come ready to film something. But anyway, Christopher Convery is in this film. This is quite a few. This movie you can tell was made a few years ago. For one thing, nothing's being filmed right now due to the strikes. So that's a thing. Unfortunately, that's going to impact a lot of people who are currently trying to get things done. But because this was something priorly done, it was obviously released. And then you got the father being played by Brian Cox. Brian Cox, who plays a legitimate guy who you believe this guy has been in prison a long time. And of course, her ex-husband, this the guy who plays Kate Beckinsale's husband in this film, is a gentleman named... hold on. At one point, I thought he was. At one point, I did think for some reason he was. Anyway, it was Tyson Ritter played the father of Christopher Convery. Now, there's so much going on in this film. I don't want to spoil a lot for you because I was fortunate enough to get to see this, and I do encourage you guys to go see this film. It was fantastic. It is a gritty movie, and there's a lot of subject matter and a lot of things that are not easy sometimes to take in. There is pretty much anything you can try to think of to make a dark kind of a movie, but also give a little bit of hope as well, is in this film. You're rooting for a lot of these people. You care about the characters off the get-go. Even Brian Cox, who is the prisoner. Now, he's been again in prison again for 12 years. Christopher Convery, who plays the son of Kate Beckinsale, he in this film is supposed to be about maybe 13 years old. So most of his life, this guy has been in jail. Maybe he is 12, in which he has never even heard of this person or who is his grandfather. Kate Beckinsale, who, it's clear that she had a rough upbringing, and anyone who's ever had a parent or a loved one who's been through the systems of the judicial system, in and out of jail a lot, or dealt with, these kinds of things, can probably relate to her character. Having one parent in jail, the other one who's a substance addict, and why she chooses not to do those things. That's kind of understandable how she would be. But also, when you're that kind of environment, you tend to grow a bit of a chip, I guess you'd say. You tend to become a little bit more harder in life. And by harder, I mean you tend to be a little bit more stiff in how you approach everyday life and how you approach situations. You're a little bit less affectionate to the general people. You tend to be a little bit more gruff sometimes because, when you're exposed to a lot of tragedy in your life in the prior, it's hard to sometimes forget about those things. And what this movie does is, Brian Cox, who's been in jail for 12 years, wants to reconnect with his daughter, but this feeling might not be a thing. It might not be reciprocated at first because she's done so long without him. And of course, she's also got to take into account that she's bringing him in to her life because he's, offered to stay with her. Sadly, he is struggling with illness, as you can hear in that description. He's wanting to reconnect as he's not feeling well. And, sometimes what this movie says is it's never too late to kind of give people a second chance. People can change, but to a point. I got to talk about Jay Ritter's character. He plays the father of Christopher Convery. And Convery, who plays Isla, I believe is the name. Very, I don't know what it is about the Converys, but one, they like to do characters that are hard to pronounce their lead characters' names for the most part. The other thing they like to do is star in movies that they try to make me cry in and get me emotional in. I haven't cried in a film since I was 10 years old. And I did not cry in this film either. However, for some reason, projects that these two are usually linked to have tugged at the heartstrings, and they've attempted to, and they almost got me. Again, The Prisoner's Daughter just came out, and I do recommend you guys check this movie out. It is fantastic, stacked to the brim with star power. Everyone does their parts well. Everyone's believable in this movie. Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters, who plays Winston, is in this film as a cameo. And what a cameo he does. He brings this scene to life. And I'm sorry to say that no matter who's on the screen, Christopher Convery is going to steal that show every single time. He's got that charismatic enigma part of him that just, the camera just follows him. And you want to see him succeed. You feel for the character. He's an individual who wants a relationship with his father, who doesn't quite understand, how life works. He doesn't understand what the conflict is between his mother and his dad. He doesn't know that his dad is an addict because his mother keeps him kind of sheltered from that. But she also keeps him from, fighting back. She keeps him from violence. And why is that? Because of how she grew up. She keeps him away from drugs and alcohol, but she also wants to keep him away from violence. We come to find out, his grandfather was in jail because he was a tough guy. Let's put it that way. And this movie, even when it's ended, you feel for every character in this movie, and that is precisely how you should cast a movie. When you're telling a story, no matter how big the character, no matter what the subject matter is of your cast, whatever your subject matter is of your script, it is important to cast the right people in the right position, because the wrong person casted can go all to can just make the whole thing fall like a house of cards. Brian Cox, Kate Beckinsale, Christopher Convery, those three names we follow through most of this movie. Each person that they interact with throughout that is just bounces off these amazing, talented people. One of the things I have to say, I'm not trying to give spoilers, but I do want to point out, I want to commend the movie on its depiction of talking about raising awareness for epilepsy, which I haven't heard anyone in a film in a long time speak about epilepsy and its effects and what it does and whatnot in a long time. And I want to give the the film credit for bringing lightness to epilepsy. As someone who has family members who have suffered from this, and knowing how scary that can be, I can relate to that. I was also a little worried because, in cinematic parts of life, eventually, if it's implied in the storyline somewhere, eventually this is going to play out. And I gotta say, they did it very well. I thought it was very sensitive to the subject matter. It wasn't insulting, nor was it speaking down to anyone. So I commend them for that. And, just bringing light to something that does affect many people around the world. And a lot of people forget that if you've ever seen the movie Steel Magnolias, probably one of the movies that is named one of the biggest tearjerkers of all time. Again, a movie that was stocked with absolute star power. Sally Field, all the way down to Julia Roberts, which I think that was one of her early roles. Everyone who was in that film bounced off of everyone else. It was a fantastic job. Dolly Parton involved in that as well. Just everyone in this film does a fantastic job. And The Prisoner's Daughter. And the last movie that I have heard of that referenced any kind of epilepsy or seizures was, Steel Magnolias. If I'm being honest, between the two, I felt that this movie was a little bit more sensitive than Steel Magnolias, as it felt forced in that film, even though anyone who's seen Steel Magnolias knows what I'm talking about. And it feels like they wanted to just get those tears flowing. That was the purpose of that film. So what can we do to make sure this audience cries? And that's the result of Steel Magnolias. Prisoner's Daughter, you're rooting for everyone. You want everyone to be okay. Even the Brian Cox's prisoner, per se, the father trying to reconnect with his daughter and his grandson. You got to understand that, being in a place like prison for 12 years is probably not easy either. To go from an environment where you're in a little bit of a block, it's not a very big area, and having done research and so forth and knowing people that have been in the system and so forth, I know what that can probably feel like, and that can feel like you're a caged animal. And then the fact that he was in there for 12 years, how many things does he not know about? Because when you're in that environment, yeah, you get the newspaper, you got news here and there, but how society works and functions, you really don't have any of those, you don't really have that kind of knowledge when you're inside of a prison system, because you're kind of shut off from the rest of the world. And you'd be amazed how hard it is for someone who is in a system like a jail system to go right into society that quick. It's not as easy as it sounds. You would think that, of course they're happy because they're free, quote. But, if you guys have ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, another fantastic film that talks about the judicial system, but also, we all know how that movie ended and really what was going on there. But, I want to call the point that, there was that one gentleman who was in prison most of his life. He gets parole, which is when they let you out early, and he can't handle the everyday he can't handle going into regular society because he's been locked up for so long. So my only thing about this is, if Brian Cox was in jail for 12 years, coming out of prison, coming right into regular society like that, that has to be a hard thing as well. But also, I think what also should be pointed out, the fact that while he's in jail, he might have had this perception of how people thought of him. People might have thought of him that way. But we come to find out that in life, his family means the world to him. And in all honesty, the people who are locked away, they have families. And and most of them, some of those people are in there for various different reasons, but it doesn't mean necessarily that they're so shut off from whatever they did that they feel no regret. A lot of the time, the reason why jail is there is to act as a way to kind of punish someone so they don't want to do something again. And it's kind of like sending your kid to the room. They don't want to get sent to their room. They don't want to get grounded. So that's why when you do those things, you take away those privileges. That's why they tend to not get in trouble, so to speak. That's initially kind of the idea of the jail system. That should be what it is. Unfortunately, there's a lot more to it, and it's a lot more involved. And the things that go on inside those walls, a lot of people outside society probably can't handle a lot of those things. There's a lot of things that the general society isn't ready to hear and doesn't want to know about. But one of the things that this movie does is it talks about how this guy who had such a reputation for being such a nasty person also has a reputation, is respected amongst the community, and how everyone is there to kind of give him, everyone's there to support him. Everyone's there to back him up. Throughout this movie, he encounters several people that a lot of people would like walk the other way when they see them coming down the street. But what we see is, because they have loyalty to him, because he respected them, because they care about him, because whatever the reason being, he has earned a sense of respect out of the general, society in that area. Which is why if he needs little things, like he needs his daughter's house fixed up, or he needs his grandson to learn some boxing things, this is how you use those connections to make sure your family's taken care of. And that's kind of how that works, and that's kind of why the way Brian Cox works and all these interactions with all of these people are important to the story, and the story development and how it's portrayed. So Prisoner's Daughter recently came out. I do recommend, again, you guys need to see this movie. It is gritty at times. It's not pretty. It does deal with a lot of adult subject matter. We're talking about prison, we're talking about violence, we're talking about drugs. But these are things that in society that everybody knows about, and everyone knows these things happen on a regular basis. This movie, unfortunately, or fortunately, is one of the rare things that isn't afraid to show people this is how this story goes. This is what, goes on behind these walls and whatnot. Again, I can't say enough about The Prisoner's Daughter. I basically did my 4 kind of steps of a film review. I mean, as you guys know, listening to me doing film reviews, there are 4 criteria: storyline and development, that's 1; casting, 2; setting and time period is 3; and 4 is the feeling after the end of the movie. So this movie checked every single box almost right off the gate. It's a story that is rare to tell, daring to tell. It's also gritty, that is realistic, but also is sensitive enough that they don't have to show all of the satire. They don't need to go into great detail certain things. I gotta say, the bullying scenes, a little annoying, but also I want to say that they handled that very realistically as well. As annoying as it is, that's kind of how, unfortunately, bullying works in this society. The person who's getting bullied sometimes will finally stand their ground, or will, try to take a stand, and they're also labeled as someone who's in trouble. And this is something that the school system, when they deal with these things, needs to look at. They need to evaluate how to handle those situations in a more respectful manner to everyone. If there is clear evidence that there is one party that is more violent or more confrontational than the other, and there is clear evidence when you've done your investigation that one party is clearly the bullying and one person is the victim, the absolute worst thing to do is to punish the victim, because basically what you're telling the victim is that you're not as good, you're just as bad as the bully, and that's not the message you want to send to the victim. Because if someone's getting bullied and they decide to stand up for themselves, and then you have a teacher or a principal or a school that says, no, you're not allowed to stand up for yourself, let us do it. But what this movie does is shows exactly how this works. how that happens. Because one of the biggest questions people have, the oldest question the parents ever have is, where was the teacher? What does the teacher say? And I gotta say, this is the most ignorant question that parents can ask their kids when their kids tells them they're being bullied. Where was the teacher? What's the teacher said about it? Because here's the thing. Bullies are not stupid. They might be, I might have my opinions of them to be, I don't see bullies as anything good at all. I see them nothing more than people who feed off the emotions of other people. They're parasites who feed on their own ego, and they love to feed off that fear and the sense that they are better than they think they are. Most of them, they feel an emptiness of themselves. So what they like to do is feel like they're more power of somebody else, someone smaller, weaker than them. But what happens is, when the victim stands up for themselves and the victim says, "Oh, not today," that bully loses that power over that person, and they'll move on to somebody else. That's the reality of it. A lot of people are afraid to talk about that stuff, but that's a different topic for a different time. And I think that, when it comes to bullying and anti-bullying, I can go on for days, hours on that subject alone. But I'm doing a film review in this section, so I'm going to save that for another portion of some other time. Plus, it's Saturday, and no one wants to think about really deep subject things like bullies on a Saturday, even though bullying happens every day of the week, somewhere, sometimes in their own houses. So that's something to be aware of. But this movie, done very well. Everyone from top to bottom did a fantastic job. Kudos to everyone involved. It was fantastic. And that, in a nutshell, is my review on The Prisoner's Daughter. Fantastic new film. It's a independent film. I do recommend you guys go check it out. It is fantastic. It's fresh. I warn you, there is a lot of things in this movie that could trigger someone in various different aspects. But I gotta say, it's done in a respectful manner. It's done intelligently, and it's not done for just gags and just for satire. It's done for reasons, and it makes perfect sense why those reasons are there. So kudos to them. And let's get ready for our next thing. As we get ready for, let's chat sports and athletes and whatnot. Ready? Guys, want to take us there? That's right, everyone. It's sports time now. And if you're wondering, is that a bowling ball I hear? And yes, it was. And do I consider bowling to be a sport? Yes, I do. If it's on ESPN, it has to be a sport, right? All right. Yeah, I know. I laugh. It has to be a sport if it's on ESPN, right? Thanks, guys. Thanks. Anyway. All right. So let's chat about some sports now. We got a lot of things going on. A lot of people, this time of the year, it's baseball season most places. Football is not going on right now. Hockey obviously isn't going on. These are winter sports. A lot of the times right now is where people are either getting ready for football, either football what the world calls football, or football what the United States calls soccer. In American football, which the world just kind of calls watered down rugby. But anyway, I'm just kidding. That's just a joke. Sorry. Thank you for attempting to cuddle that. Anyway, no, listen. I've talked before about. I respect everyone who is an athlete in any sport. I don't downplay anyone else's sports, because if you're committed enough and you're putting the work into whatever the sport is, you should be respected for that sport choice. Doesn't matter if it's American football or soccer, as you call it in America. The world calls football because it makes sense. You use your foot to play the ball. American football, you do not use your foot to play the ball. maybe if we rename the sport, maybe it would make more sense, and maybe there'd be a little less kind of snickering from everyone else. But listen, I talked a little bit before when Gabriel was on the show last week. We talked about it a little bit, and I wanted to bring this up again. I thought it was an important note to make. So, I'm a firm believer that you should never speak outside the wheelhouse. So if you have some knowledge on something, you really shouldn't speak about things you're not 100% certain of, or talk about things you haven't, experienced. In the sense of sports, I've said this numerous times, you can never say or judge someone else's sport unless you've at least tried the sport, right? Kind of like that old saying your grandmas or your mothers used to say to you maybe at dinner time, you can't say you like such and such unless you've tried it first. I can't be the only one whose grandmother ever said, try the peas, you'll like it. Or how do you know if you don't like it if you don't try it? This is an old thing my grandmother used to say. I still live it in my day. That's why I try everything, and that's how that works. But anyway, in life is the same situation. Excuse me 1 second. Sip of my water. Thank you. Whenever we talk about sports, I talk about a lot of the sports that I've played. I've played a lot of different sports, a variety of them, because one, I enjoy sports. I believe in team sports in general, and I think it's great for development. I think it's good for various reasons, like I mentioned to Gabriel last week. But I want to go over those because I thought they were important. And if there's any parents listening to this portion, I really do encourage you guys to check into these things and for these reasons and so forth. And if you're a student or someone who is getting ready to start high school, then this is also something for you guys as well. Usually I do my back to school prep talks late in August, but these days it seems like everyone's rushing everyone to get back to school already. Schools just got out around me, and they already have back to school supplies out in the beginning of July already. Okay, so let's not pretend like we don't know that we're making our kids go back to school a lot quicker than we did. The reason why it felt like our summer was longer, it's because it was. It's not rocket science. We had a straight 2 months off from school when we were going to school. We had summers off. Summers, we got out in June. We didn't go back to school till usually the September. It was in September. It was the Sunday. It was the Monday after Labor Day. That's when we went back to school. That's a fact. And whatnot. So here's the thing. So what I like to do is I like to give people, tips, and I told my own kids this when they were getting ready to go to high school. So if there's anybody here anyone listening who is, ready to go, is getting ready to go to high school, or parents who are have kids who are getting ready to go to school of some kind, I'm going to say a couple things about team sports. I think they're important for many reasons. I think they're important. I'm going to give you a list of reasons why they're good, rather than just say they're good because I say so. That's a lame thing and doesn't answer any questions. One, the first thing that school sports specifically does, it gives the kid initiative, one, to go to school. If they don't go to school, they can't play in the game, or they can't practice, and if they can't if they can't practice or play the game, they're letting their teams down. They're learning responsibility. The other thing it does, so of course that encourages them to want to go to school, so at least they'll be there for their team, right? At the very least. But the other thing it does is if in most sports you have to get fairly decent grades in order to remain on the team. High school, I know that's a thing. I don't know about middle school or anything like that. But in middle school, I played various sports. I don't remember there being really any kind of conflicts as far as grades. But high school, I definitely remember grades were a big thing. I didn't really have those issues because I really enjoyed school. I liked learning, and I did extra credit most of the time. So I was there's reasons why I got the name Jazz. And mostly it's because really there's no one thing that I attach to. Thank you. That's a true statement right there. So the first thing is motivation to get to school. They want to be there so they don't miss practice, they don't miss games. It gives them an incentive to go to school. Some kids like to go play those sports, and if they want to like that, then they're going to want to go to school. The other thing, again, it helps with grades, as I just mentioned. So keeping up with their grades in order to stay on those teams is important. So it motivates them to be better students and work hard to get decent grades. So it motivates them to be a better academic student as well as an athlete. And the other thing, which is the social aspect, especially in high school. I want to take you guys back to your first day in high school. Hold on. Ants, take us back. Okay, thank you. Now let's take you back to high school, the right way. All right, awesome. Now we're really back in high school now. All right, first day of your freshman year of high school. What is high school, first and foremost? One of the things about high school, in most places, is you have some kids you've known from middle school, but most places, most towns, cities, or whatnot, what it'll do is there'll be other schools within your region that will also go to that same high school. It usually comes with a jurisdiction, right? For example, using myself for an example, I went to Quincy High School. Go Presidents. Anyway, I did not go to. I definitely did not go to the North Quincy High School because that would be a joke. But anyway, I'm just kidding. No, but listen. So this is kind of how it works. So since I was in my area of Quincy, the middle schools were attached to Quincy High were Sterling Middle School. Yeah, Sterling Middle School, as well as Sterling Middle School, Point Webster, which was in a section called Quincy Point, and then that would change its name to something else, and then you get some kids who went from Broad Meadows. Now, flip side of things, kids who went to Broad Meadows, a place called Snug Harbor, or went to Squantum Middle School or Central Middle School, they would go to North Quincy High School. I know, confusing, right? North Quincy High School, Quincy High School. So I went to Quincy High because I was in my section of Quincy. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, I moved along a lot as a kid. I went to 4 middle schools in total. I went to East Middle School in Braintree. I went to the Sterling Middle School in Quincy. Then in 8th grade, wait a minute. Let's take you through my middle schools. I can give you this one job, right? I started 6th grade going to East Middle School in Braintree. I moved in the beginning of that year to go to South Boston and ended up going to the Woodrow Wilson Middle School in Dorchester. The remainder of my 6th grade year. 7th grade I went to Sterling. 8th grade I went to Broad Meadows. 4 middle schools for my middle school encounters. So, yeah, take that into account. 2 middle schools, 4 high schools. No, two middle schools. No, 1 second. 2 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 1 high school. That's how and then 3 colleges. 3.5 if you count Walter Kowalski School of Wrestling. It's a training school. And so, okay, so 3 trade schools total. So yeah, a lot of schooling, folks. A lot of schooling. But in general, one of the things that you encounter is when you move around to town, you have to make friends. So, not forgetting about the original subject, we're talking about why team sports are a good idea. So, if you're new to an area, your kid's just joining, high school, and you're new to an area, the best thing you can do for them socially is to encourage them to join. And I'm not saying just a sport. I want to say any kind of a club that your kid enjoys. If you're a parent who really is invested in your children's future, and you really care about them as a whole, and you treat them as their individuality, and you're not one of these parents who force their kids to do something because you played that way back in the day, and you think they should do that as well, or you want to make sure your kids are doing something that all the other kids are doing just because it's socially acceptable. I'm not going to sit there and poke things and say that's good or bad. Different strokes for different folks. Some kids are really good in soccer. Some kids are really good in football. Some kids are good in swimming. Some kids are good at diving. Diving and swimming, I was on one team, swimming and diving team, right? I did the swimming part because I didn't do the diving. But it didn't make any difference between it at the end of the day. I still worked as hard as the divers do. Maybe even, they both work hard. Anywho, but when it comes to getting them involved in some type of a club or any type of, it could be a sports club or a drama club, a music club. I don't even care if it's chess, okay? There's literary clubs. There's all kinds of clubs in your kids' high schools that are available. I encourage you guys to look at what they're offering in your high school. Sadly, I counted this with my own kids. The days of, going to a school and learning various trades under one roof is kind of a dying breed. The quote vocational school, they're kind of going out of style, I guess you'd say. When I went to Quincy High, you did both academics and you did a vocational school, training in one school. So in other words, I learned both academics and I learned some type of trade all 4 years of my high school experience at Quincy High. And I automatically I ended up joining the soccer team, by the way, to answer people's question. Because one, I enjoyed soccer. I enjoyed running. I liked scoring. I thought it was fun. And I was pretty decent at doing a lot of that. And also it was offered to me. So I went to join the soccer team. Come to find out how hard soccer was, I think a lot of people look at things, from the side eye, like, what are they doing? And it really can't be that hard. It's just running on the field. But as the football team found out, it's not as easy as it sounds, because one of the biggest differences, a lot of the differences between soccer and what American calls football, is it's nonstop running in soccer, and American football is stop and go. Also, there's two lines in football, American football. There's offense and defense line, and in soccer, everyone's out in the field for the same point. If you need someone to take a spot, so to speak, you got one person to come over and give you a rest. There was none of this line changing thing. And everyone's responsible for doing their own part on helping the team. There wasn't necessarily a quarterback, and I guess in the terms of that, I guess the goalie in soccer would probably be the equivalent to the quarterback, because he might be the most important person on the team. I know that sounds like a harsh statement for a lot of people who are scoring the goals, right? But at the end of the day, the goalie has to be responsible for making sure no other team scores on their goal. Yes, you have defensemen, but at the end of the day, your goalkeeper is the very last line of defense. If they get past the defenseman, your goalie has to be the one to make sure the ball does not go in your net. Soccer is not a sport that you get all these points for. American football, I think a touchdown is 6 points, and the conversion is 7, if I'm correct. In soccer, it's a goal is a goal. It's not a high-scoring game. It's much like hockey, in all honesty. Ice hockey and soccer and field hockey all kind of have the same kind of plays, I guess you'd say, and also the kind of the same kind of layouts, if you really think about it. In all honesty, I have a friend of mine over in Russia, good old Arsenij Verkovitz, who does both who does football, meaning soccer, and he does ice hockey, and he's even said how similar those two are. Really, ice hockey is probably equivalent to football or soccer, only on ice, and vice versa. And a heck of a lot less pads, I'll tell you that. I had to get myself a little water. Sorry, folks. But in general, when it comes to soccer, you know, your uniform is your shirt, your pants, your supporter, if you know what I mean, and you guys know what a supporter is. Well, I'm not going to go into detail. If you've played a sport, you know what a supporter is, especially if you're male. And then you have shin guards in your cleats. That's your soccer uniform. Shirt, shorts, supporter, shin guards, cleats in the soccer socks. That's your uniform. There is no helmet. There is no elbow pads. There's no body pads. There's no butt pads. There's no leg pads. It's, excuse me. It's a very physical, demanding sport. It's non-stop running. In all honesty, I want you guys to think, close your eyes for a second, because we did this. When we played the football team that year, because I was tired of them disrespecting the soccer players. Because I did both 1 year. And by the way, I want to say again, this is not a good idea. Parents, don't encourage your kids to do more than they should. If they're doing one sport a season, that's okay. Some people don't really like all kinds of sports. And again, that's okay too. I think it's important for them to join some type of whatever the activity, whatever the club is. But I think it's important for parents to realize that they should, one, know who their kids are and be supportive of their kids' goals. If they know their kids are into theater or want to do acting or whatever, maybe they have a lot of energy, maybe the best idea is to encourage them to go for drama club. Again, there are multiple things you can do. And there's multiple sports. Most places have options. And it's all about, choosing what's right for your kids, really. And encouraging them to do what they do for them. Not us. My son's a good example of that. I can play basketball. I enjoy playing basketball. He played basketball on a team. He won't play soccer on a team. But I also didn't force him to play soccer just because I played soccer. That's not my right to make him play soccer if he doesn't want to play. He likes basketball, and that's okay too. Now, basketball is a winter sport, so I unfortunately didn't get to play basketball because, as I learned my junior year, junior, by the way, for the world audience, is technically 10th grade is junior year. Also, how many times have I ever really gone over the difference between American school systems and the world school systems? I got to say, outside of the United States, I'm not 100% on how everyone else does their schooling, but I'm going to let the world audience know. I'm sure American audiences are aware. I'm just going to say this, so it's a blanket statement. But in America, when we're talking about high school, we're talking about 9th grade till 12th grade. That is high school here in the States. And each one of those numbers and those grades come with a kind of a nickname. So, and actually that nickname kind of carries over from the other grades as well, so people know. Other than elementary school, there's too many grades, right? So high school, 9th grade is freshman. 10th grade is junior. Nope, I'm sorry. What am I talking about? Sorry about that, folks. 9th grade, see how long it's been? All right, so your 9th grade is your freshman year. 10th grade is your sophomore year. Junior year is your 11th grade. 12th grade is your senior year, and that's when you're done with school, theoretically. I misspoke earlier. I tried doing both American football and soccer my sophomore year of high school, which was not a good idea. I don't ever recommend you guys do that. Reason being, they're both fall sports. And I realized that I should just stick to the sports in each of those seasons. I enjoyed the team sports. I enjoyed being there for my team. I enjoyed being there for the feeling on the audience. I was someone on a field. I was someone on a pool. I was someone on a field. At home, I was nobody. If that makes any sense. And then I also had the martial arts outside of the school. So I was, I had the best of both worlds, I guess. If I didn't have a sport going on, I was usually doing a tournament somewhere in the East Coast somewhere. That's how my weekends were. That's how my life was. And then my friends were the rest of it. So that's how that worked. But anyway, in general, my sports were soccer, wrestling, swimming. So those are my three sports, 3 seasons, right? Fall was soccer, winter was wrestling, spring was swimming. So that's how my sports were broken into, and that's where I excelled in. So, but going back to the football thing, when I was playing football and I played soccer at the same time, and the football team for some reason would look down upon the soccer team like they weren't as tough as they were. And it wasn't just the players. In fact, I'm going to be honest with you guys. For the most part, it was the parents of the football players who would often, often say things about the soccer players and how their sons were so fantastic at what they did, and how, real men, quote, play football. They don't play soccer. And they had all kinds of derogatory things to say about the soccer players. Until it came time to play, a game of soccer with the football players. Because I said, listen, enough of this nonsense. We're all athletes. So either you can play a game of soccer and see how it's really done, or just shut your mouth. That's point blank what I said. Because I am the voice of the people and I have no problem speaking up when I need to. Because as respectful I was to my football coach, I am also respectful of my soccer coach, who I also called that football, because that's what I was told soccer was. Because again, my coach was English. He was from England, so he called it soccer. He called soccer football already. But because I'm loyal to both, I said, listen, we're all athletes. Let's respect each other and just just leave it alone. Don't be poking the bear and talking about things you've never done. But that was when the quarterback and the guys said, no, we can play that game any day of the week. So we did set a time. They had to wear all of their pads. They brought all their pads. The soccer players just, wore the soccer uniform. I did play on the soccer side of things, just so you know. And we played. We played soccer against the American football team, a game of soccer. And probably within the first 20 minutes, they were gasping for air. They were not happy about it at all, because they were waiting for a whistle to blow. They were waiting for a line change. There are no line changes. They didn't know how certain elements worked. So, as far as that went. Now, could they tackle us because it's, soccer? No, because tackling is technically not allowed in soccer. But the slide tackle is, which if you guys know how to do a slide tackle, then you were allowed to do a slide tackle. Slide tackle is pretty much the only type of forceful thing you can do in soccer without getting some type of penalty card. And the object is to win, not get penalties. So you had to do things on the cuff. So yeah, the football players had to wear their helmets and their pads, and they come to find out that running, a half hour straight or an hour straight, and then having about 20 minutes to break, and then running another hour after that, because your average game is about 3 hours. So it's the average game is about 2.5 hours. So an hour, there's like a half hour break and then another hour. So 2 hours total, and then a half an hour for a break is generally how a soccer game works. In American football, anyone who's played, you know if there are line changes in between. There's quarters, stop and go. Not in soccer. You get the ball, you better get that ball in the net. And you'd be surprised how many linebackers couldn't get the concept of dribbling the ball from one end of the field to getting just 5 feet with the ball. Because they can't use their hands, remember, in American football. You got to use your feet, as it's called football. So, needless to say, it didn't go well for the American football kids. I remember this game very well, and it was a life lesson. And after that game, the football team respected us. Their parents could say whatever they want. I remember the center of the football team. His dad was saying something about how could you let those guys beat you, and then his son, the center, who was probably 7 times bigger than I was at that time, he told his dad, "Listen, they're real athletes. That is not a joke. There's no joking around about that soccer." And we earned their respect because we showed them that we are just as athletic as they were. And sometimes you have to kind of give that thing. But again, the thing you should remember out of that story isn't so much the fact that we, played this game and the language between each other. That's not really the point of that conversation. It's more about the fact that it shouldn't be whatever, is popular. It should be whatever we think our kids like to have. Have a conversation with your kids before they start school. What kind of clubs do you guys think you like? Most schools have a website and will have what they offer. Go over the program with your kids before they start. And then have a conversation so they'll know when they start. Don't judge or try to force your kids into a club because you think it sounds cool. Put them in a club or suggest a club because you think they'll do well at it and they'll enjoy it. Because again, at the end of the day, there are other purposes just to get them into the club. It's not just to play the sport. It's not to get a scholarship. It's to keep them invested in the school experience and also give them social clarity, I guess you'd say. Because, I'll tell you, when it came to the lines of things, athletes stuck together. Athletes respected one another, especially after that football game. Everyone respected everyone because everyone's an athlete. I remember several times where, people would give the band people a hard time. Listen, I don't deal with bullies in general. I don't care if you're a sports person or not a sports person. Bullies exist in both forms, unfortunately. And even though I'm not in the band, I'm not going to let someone pick on someone in the band, even if they're on my team. Facts on that. It's all about doing what's right. So it's about really giving our kids the opportunity to kind of find their own way, be themselves, work as a team to build a foundation for themselves. In all honesty, people have asked me my stance on participation trophies. Should they exist? Everyone should be a winner because they tried. I got to tell you though, I look at it and I understand the sentiment, but I'm going to be honest with you. This is more about you than it is for your kid when you're encouraging that. Because for me, when I lose, everyone looks at loss as a failure, as a negative thing. That isn't always the truth. On a mat, I never lost. I got one draw, and it haunted me for my whole combat's MMA ability thing. It affected me. I got that one draw when I was 10 years old. I started competing in tournaments when I was 5. From 5 to 10, I never got a loss. I got a draw when I was 10. Never got, and then I won all the rest of them until I was 18. But that one draw haunted me for the rest of my career, and I wanted to be better so that didn't happen again, or I would never have that. And I don't like draws in general. I want to know who is when you're doing like combat sports, you want to find out who the better person is. But if everyone's winning something, what is the point of giving anyone anything? What is the incentive to giving everyone a trophy if you're playing a game? you're actually undermining the goal, the incentive. You're basically saying, yeah, well, you came in second, so, you're still going to get $1 million. That's not how that works. And that's not how life works. But you know what it does when they get that loss? It gives them a way to work better, to work harder, something to change. They can look back. When I got that draw, I knew what I couldn't do again. I knew I couldn't take this kid lightly. Of course, I never got to play, face that kid again because he quit after that. And then the school that he represented folded. So I never got my rematch, which is why it haunted me. Because I'm pretty certain if I got it, I probably would have won that. And I would have felt better, but it never happened, so it haunts me. That's from an athlete's perspective. From an athlete's perspective, listen, when it's an MMA thing, it's an individual thing. When you're on a sports team, it's a united thing. It's a team thing. There's an old, corny cliche that most coaches use, and it is a true thing. There is no I in teamwork. And then this is when some loudmouth will say, well, there is an I in win. And that's right, there is an I in win. But there's also not an I in lose either. So there's no point of that. But in general, it's a team win when you work as a team. When the team is working as one and everyone's doing their roles and everyone's there to help each other, it's an unbeatable team, right? But when you lose, that's when the team needs to look at something. What do we have to do to fix this so it doesn't happen again? I can't sit here and say that my soccer team, my swim team, and my wrestling team always won everything. I can't say that to you guys because it wouldn't be true always. We did very well. We won many games. I did my part. They did their part. And in soccer and in sports, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But every single time we would lose, we learned what we had to do better the next time we played them, and we beat them the second time. Most sports, most teams, when we're talking about high school, most of the time you're playing against other schools and other towns. Within your, most schools have like a district, as they call it, or a league, if you would. So most of the time you'll play a certain amount of schools within that league, and most of the times you'll play with the same team at least twice until the championship. Then you'll play whoever is there at the end. But at the end of the day, the thing to remember is that each one of those towns and schools or whatever, you're going to play them twice. So if they beat you once, go back and see what you did, what you can do differently. When you play them again, apply something and then change it. And guess what? If we lost to a team, we beat them the next time. And because guess what? When you lose, when you get knocked down, what do? That's a life lesson. That's a personal question. That's also up to the individual. That goes up to anyone. This is a lesson that is more so surpasses sports. I've told the story how I literally got thrown off a horse in my uncle's when I was a little kid, and my aunt and uncle had race horses. I got thrown off off the back of a horse. I landed in the barn. It was probably one of the most embarrassing things I've ever been in my life. I was maybe 6 or 7. But my uncle told me, get back on the horse, because if you don't, you'll never get on a horse again. And it wasn't because he was going to keep me from getting on the horse. It's because the fear of being thrown off again would keep me from wanting to get back up on the horse again unless I just did it right there. He was right. I got back up on the horse, and then, he didn't get to throw me off the next time. In sports, you get a loss. You go down. Okay. You get up, dust yourself off, and say, let's go again. Do it again. And that's how sports are. So as far as participation trophies, my stance on that, although I understand you don't want to see your kid disappointed when the winning team gets the win, at the end of the day, you're actually depleting the lesson that is there for life. The lesson is what do you do when you fail? What do you do when you come short of your goal? You work harder and you achieve it next time. How many people go to work and if you come close to doing your job, your boss pays you the same? If you go to work, right? And yeah, that's the best example. If you go to work and John, you do all this work, right? You're the lead executive in a firm, right? And you make this big sale, right? $250,000 sale you are, right? Now, in theory, what you're telling people, your kids, is even though person A who works in a firm who actually made this huge sale with his own work, who has earned the firm this big huge money and all these things, he did that. But let's say your son or your daughter or whoever, what if they're making photocopies down the hall? What if they're just collecting mail? What if they're just doing the maintenance on the building? Are they entitled to the same thing as the person who made the sale? Are they the same or are they different? And why aren't they? Any other scenarios, right? You're a doctor, okay? You're a surgeon. Even better, you're a surgeon, okay? And you're about you're about to go in for surgery. This is the best example. You're about to go into surgery, right? Heart surgery, very serious operation, right? And you can either have the lead, the number one heart surgeon in the world, or you can have the guy who holds the sponge, who turns on and off the lights. Which one should they be paid the same? Should the guy who's holding the sponge get paid the same as the guy who's doing the surgery himself? No, that would be ridiculous, right? Now, even if it's your son, if you have a son and a cousin, right? And the cousin has a degree and has the credentials and is a heart surgeon. Your cousin, your nephew, let's say, your nephew has a heart degree and they're a heart surgeon, the number one in the region. Your son is the janitor for the hospital. Do you want your son to give you surgery because he's your son? Should he get paid the same as your nephew who is a doctor? Initially, this sounds like a huge stretch, right? How can you compare sports to these real life things? Because in general it is. A participation trophy, it downplays the importance of the win, but also is insulting to your son. It means, well, you're not as good. What the participation trophy means to your kid is less than what you think it does. In fact, it might be the cruelest thing you could do to your kid. So, child A, who's a top leading athlete in the region, has giant trophies all over his room. And then your little Max, who is usually on the bench. And we all know those people. He's on the bench, doesn't get to play a lot because, well, maybe he's just not as good as, person A. But, the person A gets the trophy, and then Max has these little itty-bitty tiny trophies because he participated in the game. So when the higher ranking athlete comes to their house and they go to their room, they see these little minnow-sized trophies. Your kid feels miserable. Do you understand that? You think the participation trophy makes your kids feel better until you realize the participation trophy isn't for your kid, it's for you. because the kid will learn. The kids, yeah, it's hard to lose. No one wants to lose. No one. How many games do your kids play? Do they get all bent out of shape if they don't win in Minecraft? No, not usually. Why? It's a game. Should we just give them, if they don't win in checkers, do we just give them, whatever else? You're downplaying the win and lose thing. You're looking at losing as a negative thing. And ultimately, the loss is a way to learn what to do to get better. And that's where you fail. So all those parents out there who believe in this participation trophy thing, I got to tell you, I grew up in the areas where we didn't get participation trophies. And you know what? If we did get a participation trophy, we probably would have thrown it back at them and said, nope, no thank you. Because we want the real thing. We don't want the booby prize, because that's what that would be. And when you encourage that to happen and you think this is a great thing, you got to understand that's an ego thing on yourself and not your kid. If you explain to your kid and you feel badly, then help your kid become better. Give them tricks. Encourage them to do better. Don't yell and scream at them, because that does nothing. Just because the other team won this time doesn't mean they can't come back and beat them again. So remember that next time. Remember, at the end of the day, the participation trophy isn't for your kids, it's for you. Because it makes you feel better as a parent. Because it's easier to, it's kind of like when your kid's a little and they're in a store and you give them a pacifier when they're crying in the store, right? They want something in the store, but instead of getting them the item, you put a pacifier in their mouth. Because it's easier on you. It doesn't attract attention. It doesn't attract noise. It doesn't embarrass you as a parent. And listen, I'm a parent. Remember that. I have 2 kids. I've been through this scenario. But at the end of the day, I get it. But at the end of the day also, when you're just giving them what they want, giving them something to make it easier on yourself, you're not doing anything to help them. That doesn't help them. If you really want to help them, get them a better coach, get them, spend some time to, play catch with them. But the easier thing to do is just say, well, give them another trophy, because that will make them feel better. It's not going to make them feel better. It makes them feel worse and underutilized. It also means, well, we're not good enough to win the big thing, but we're good enough to be the last place. I mean, come on, people. Anyway, that's my rant on, that whole thing. But at the end of the day, I want to, again, encourage you, parents out there, when it comes to getting your kids involved in any type of activities at school, I do encourage that. But I also think it's important to be honest with yourself and your kids and get them involved in things you know they're going to enjoy, not things that you would enjoy. Just because you don't like chess, but you know your kid likes to play games, don't discourage your kid from playing chess. Encourage him and say, hey, go well for the chess club. He'll make new friends at the chess club. Guess what? Those people who want to look down upon people who play on the chess club or the newsletter club or the media club, there's so many clubs out there. I just found out my old high school has a comic book club where they make their own comic books. How awesome is that? Now, if I'm a kid and my parents, if my son wanted to go join that comic book thing, I would sign him up for that in a heartbeat. Even though I can't draw to save my life, I would much rather see him enjoy that. Or my daughter, for that matter. She can draw. I can't draw. I can write. I can't draw. But, that's the point of that. So, when you get them involved in something at school or in an activity, it keeps them invested in the school. It gives them a reason to go to school and to stay on, keep their attendance up. It also encourages them to get their grades pretty decent and to stay on top of their goal. It could give them good, solid relationships in school, which they do need. Hopefully they, have positive people on their team that can help them out. And the other thing at the end of the day is it just makes it an easier time for them. It's not such a drag because, they got to go to school. There's reasons to go rather than just go to school, come home, go to school, come home. And yeah, so many of us have done that. But when they have an incentive to go to school and they have like a club or an activity to do after school, who doesn't want to be rewarded? If you're going to work every day and they say, hey, on Friday, everybody, we're going to take a company trip to Six Flags. Are you going to not go to work? Of course you're going to be excited to go to work to go to Six Flags for the day. Hey, everyone, today at lunch we're going to be given free lunch from Legal Seafood. Right? You're going to want to go to work to get that that lunch at Legal Seafood, right? Incentive. See that? So that's my take on sports in general. And also, don't downplay certain sports just because you don't understand them. I played a lot of sports in school. I played volleyball, I played softball, I played regular baseball, I played American football, I played soccer, which is football. I played rugby. I've done bowling, I've done archery, I've done basketball, I've done lacrosse, I've done badminton, I've done tennis, I've done golf. I do not like golf. I have no patience for golf, sorry to say. Mini golf, I can barely have enough time. So these are the various things that I've gotten covered. Wrestling, of course, swimming, diving, rock climbing, and then human services, we had a club for that as well. So I got to get my first day in CPR thanks to the high school that offered it. And I got a nursing part of that and an intro to psychology in high school, which is awesome. Come on now. So these are the things you learn, and that's the things you kind of encourage, and that's the things that will keep the kids invested in school and find their own worth there. So that's my take on that. All right. Now, guys, let's get ready to go and recognize some rising stars. Guys, take it away. All right, folks. First and foremost, I want to just make a general statement here. So, our icons of the F4L, which is on YouTube. Everyone who's listening to this right now, who is from YouTube, probably is aware. It's on this channel. Go watch some of these things. These people that we feature are real-life people. They are based on the actual people, and that's why they're as iconic as they are. And they're going to be rising stars. That's why they're rising stars. Because we believe them as a whole. Something you guys should probably know is my son and I agree upon everyone who's added or taken off of the roster. We communicate on a regular basis about the roster. Again, on any active roster, you could only have a max of 100 people. That sounds like a lot of people. But to do a show broken into two different categories, you'd be surprised how that kind of is not enough, so to speak. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. So we, on a regular basis, will meet and go over the roster, who should and shouldn't be there, who is doing really well. And as a whole, this channel's been blowing up as of late. Listen, all of the amazing performances by our guys has been phenomenal. And the algorithms tell me that people are watching these things and enjoying it, and that's awesome. If people could like it and subscribe, that would be awesome. Just because that way there you'll know when we do new shows. If we add more shows, maybe be more willing to do more of these things. Probably less involved than the average 8 shows we usually do. Again, the schedule, if you would, that we generally try to stick to is the Dream Masters are on the 4th. Dream Warriors, Dream Masters being our males, Dream Warriors are on the 9th, which is tomorrow. on average. This is a regular schedule. The 14th is going to be the Dream Masters. The 16th is the Dream Warriors. And then on the 24th of every month is the last show, and that features both the Dream Masters and the Dream Warriors as one final show for the month. That is our general schedule as of right now. If more people subscribed and watched on a more regular basis, I'd probably be more willing to do what we were going to do originally, and that's literally be on when the other guys were on, because I believe in our roster more than any other roster out there. That being said, I want a couple things here. So, apparently, and you know what, I'm going to say this point blank. The issue here, there is a certain fan base throughout any platform that is the most toxic, the most detrimental, and the most hypocritical of any fan base, of any, I don't know what you want, any kind of anything pop culture that I have ever witnessed. That's saying a lot. They are more toxic than the Trekkies. They're more toxic than the Freddie and Jason girls. They're more toxic than any band. They are just, okay. Here's the problem, right? If someone has an opinion on something, that's their opinion and they are entitled to it. So I'm going to say that right now. If you have an issue with this, then you have an issue with this. That's on you. That's not on me. I want to make that clear. If someone takes this to heart, then you're probably one of these people I'm addressing. There is nothing negative that goes on in the F4L Headquarters podcast, nor is there anything negative that goes on the icons of the F4L. Opinions are, in fact, just that. They're an opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. No one has a right to insult, degrade, attack a person because they do not agree with what you believe in or what your opinion is of the same thing. For example, pro wrestling. Oh boy. I grew up in the era where no one talked about wrestling at all. And then in the 90s, everyone talked about wrestling. You couldn't escape from it. And now we're into this phase where some people are into it, some people are into this new whatever they call it, and then there are people who just stick their faces into both. Now listen, in the 80s, the 1980s, when I was born and raised, when I first discovered pro wrestling, I had people I liked, I had people I didn't like. A lot of the people I did not like were fan favorites. But it wasn't because I was being a rebel on occasion. It wasn't because I was, quote, a smart fan. There were certain wrestlers I enjoyed because of how they perceived themselves, how they handled themselves in the ring, things that they did differently than everybody else. So a lot of people in the 1980s, a lot of people would say, if you would ask them, who's your favorite wrestler of the 1980s, a lot of them would say Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, right? I would say guys like Ricky Steamboat, Roddy Piper, Jake Roberts, Tito Santana, Rick Martel. You see a point there? Some people might say the Road Warriors. I prefer Demolition. You know what's incredible? Wrestling fans back then, okay, you can boo Hogan, you can be a boo Warrior. We're both going to cheer. No one cared. Understand that? When I went to a wrestling show for the first time, live, in person, and in the audience, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was 6 years old. I sat in old Boston Garden. It wasn't the main event that sold me. It wasn't Hogan and the big guy at the end. It was the opening match that caught my attention, that cracked me as a wrestling fan. It gave me the bug, as we call it in wrestling. The opening card was the late, great Leaping Lenny Poffo and Steve Lombardi. How many people know who Steve Lombardi is? Or Leaping Lenny Poffo? Well, let me give you their other names that you might know them as. The Genius, who was the younger brother of the Macho Man, Randy Savage. And Steve Lombardi would go on to be someone you might know called the Brooklyn Brawler. He was that guy that lost every match on Saturday morning, against the big name, right? That was the match that caught my attention. That was what drew me into wrestling. It wasn't the two big guys at the end who could barely move, who were gassed up by the end of the middle of the match. It didn't even have a clear ending. They had to get a disqualification going. There was a tag team match between the Brainbusters, which was Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, versus the Hart Foundation, which was Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Bret Hart, probably one of the most technically sound wrestlers of modern time, who would go on to be a singles wrestler and become, number one, shatter the glass roof and take away the thing where all the wrestling is a big man sport. Because if it wasn't for guys like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and guys like that, that wouldn't be a thing. Now, to be honest and to be fair, I'm not overly fond of Shawn Michaels. My wife loves Shawn Michaels. You see the point there? It's about who cares at the end of the day. Who cares who supports anyone? No one bothers anyone. But today's wrestling fans, there are fans. If you say the wrong thing about the ones that they like so much, they will target you and they will cut you to pieces. And how dare you have that opinion of them? Well, here's what I say to you. How dare you tell anyone who they should cheer for? What relevance do you have to tell anyone who they should cheer for or boo for? You don't have that right. You have no power of anyone to make them cheer or boo or anything else. They have no right to hate on the things that you do. But you definitely don't have a right to hate or disrespect them because they don't agree with you. That makes you a hypocrite. That makes you the automatic bad guy, the villain, the heel in life, using a wrestling term. Now, this is coming from a perspective of someone not just who has a podcast. I was in the wrestling business for 24 plus years, people. I've been inside the square circle. I worked with some of these people. I worked in the wrestling industry, in the ring and outside the ring. So, I'm always trained. I was always taught that fans are going to boo whoever they want. You're entitled to boo and cheer whoever you please, and that's your right as a fan. You do not have the right to insult other fans for not agreeing with you. Let me be clear on that. You don't get to tell someone who they can cheer or boo. Who are you? Who gives you that authority? No one. That's who. They call these people smart fans. That's not smart. That's ignorance. That's entitlement. That's falsehood. Have you ever competed inside a ring? Have you ever booked an actual wrestling card? Have you built a professional wrestling ring? Have you took a bump in a real ring, not a backyard anywhere? Have you been trained by a legitimate trainer in wrestling? If you said no to any of those questions, you don't have an opinion. Your opinion is not relevant. Because you like who you like, You think everyone should like who you cheer for. You don't have that right as a person, as a fan. There is absolutely no fan base that is this disrespectful to other fans. And I'm going to tell you this. I grew up in Boston. And one of the biggest, longest rivalries in baseball history is New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. Right? Knockdown, drag-out rivalry, right? Let me tell you this. At the end of the day, when 9/11 happened, Boston was there for New York. And then the Boston Marathon happened because I was there. And I went in to make sure everyone was okay that day. I'm going to tell you this too. The Yankees fans in Yankee Stadium, they had a tribute to the Boston Red Sox in Yankee Stadium, one of the most heated rivalries in all of baseball. One of the most heated fan bases. The Yankees and the Red Sox. Because at the end of the day, they understand it's a game. They are people. And these fans who look at this wrestling thing, and they are so defensive of their wrestlers and their people that they love that they have to insult, berate, and just attack the person who disagrees with them. How dare you? You are a problem for the wrestling world and for society. If you are this invested and this demanding and this delusional that your opinion should matter, that you have some type of, I don't know. When you go to a wrestling show, cheer for who you want, boo for who you want. You don't get to tell other fans who they can boo and cheer and how they have opinions. It's recently come to my attention, people who have even disliked the video game recently, the AEW Fight Forever video game. People who have said some not so positive things about that have been attacked. One person pulled their video because of how much torment they were getting. Oh, well, they made me pull them out, and I'm going to put it back up. You know what? Don't ever pull something just because people don't agree with what you say. If you put that up there, and that's your opinion, you have a right to it. No one has a right to tell you what to say, how to think, who to cheer for, who to boo for, what to play, what not to play. It's an opinion that is your own. Just like if they don't want to agree with you, they don't have to agree with you. But guess what? They don't get to be disrespectful for you. This needs to be looked at. This needs to be addressed. And I think this is something that needs to be addressed from somewhere. But I don't know where, because I don't know where this began. I grew up a wrestling fan watching pro wrestling in the 1980s when I went to wrestling school, and before that I did studies wrestling before my time. Do you know that I can't bring myself to watch a modern wrestling show because it hurts my heart to see what it's become? I find parts of it very insulting to the people who I have shared a ring with. It's demoralizing of my trainer who busted his rear end to train me and countless other people to make sure they made themselves respectful in the business. They portrayed themselves believable in the world. And they went into a ring, it didn't kill someone or hurt someone as best as they could. That was what my trainer was known for. So much so that they had a test in the WWE way back in the day. He was there to make sure if someone could do things safely in a ring. Fill in the blanks, wrestling fanatics. But let me tell you something. Yes, I'm not overly fond of AEW. I'm not overly fond of the WWE right now either. But guess what? Here's where the difference is. This is the difference between one fan base and the other. If I was, where I say, I don't like what they're doing, and I don't like what they're doing. That's my opinion. The WWE will not hound me. They won't attack me. Their fan base won't attack me. They won't threaten to block me, suspend me, or have me shut down. However, the opposite will. That is ridiculous. There is no fan base that does this. It doesn't make you look good. It isn't a good image for your company or your fan base when you act like cyber bullies. There is no fan base for this. There is no reason to act like that. Cheer for who you don't, cheer for who you want to cheer, boo for who you don't want to boo, or whatever the case may be. If you like to play a game, whatever, but don't be hating or don't be disrespectful to someone because they don't like the same game as you. That is ridiculous. And you really, 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 really have to have nothing better to worry about in your life if you're worried about what someone's opinion is on a video game. The smallest of the small potatoes that one could care about in life. Whether or not someone likes a video game or not. Get over it. There are worse things in life. And if this is something that is so crucial to you, and this is the worst things that you've ever seen, is these things being said and done about these favorite people, you need a reality check to what really is important in life. You don't have any comprehension of what real life issues are. And now you're going to tell me, well, no, that's not fair to say I don't know what real life issues are because I'm that. No, you don't. Because if this is something that keeps you up at night and this is something that is on your agenda, and your agenda is to attack someone because they don't agree with something you do, and your mission is to make sure their life is miserable because they don't like your video game that your company, that your favorite people put together, then no, you're an issue. And no, that is not a rational thing. And yes, that means you don't have anything really big to worry about because that is the lamest of lame things that someone could care about if my video game is good or not. I'm going to say this too. I am not on Twitter. I was on Twitter for a long time. I never really got the point of it anyway. And what I found Twitter to be is just people running their mouth all the time. I remember one time I said an opinion on a certain journalist in wrestling who I can't stand. And I stand by that to this day. Why? Because I've been in the pro wrestling business for 24 years, people. 24 plus years. And I know what that brings. And I also know that this is partially on him. And people who excuse him from that need to stop because this is the result of it. I'm shaking my head at all of it. Again, if I'm a fan of Edgar Allan Poe and I'm a fan of Stephen King, but one group of people tell me, no, you can't like Edgar Allan Poe more than Stephen King, that's not allowed. Who are you to tell me who to read? Listen, I'm from Boston originally. I don't cheer for the Boston teams. I cheer for who I choose to cheer for. I'm not going to be told who to cheer for because of where I live. That's not something you need to do. Because at the end of the day, all of those players come from other places to play on that team. They don't really have a link to your city. You have to understand that, people. That's why the baseball fans don't act like this. Football fans. Now, these are fan bases that are very passionate. They're very passionate sports fans. Football, baseball, soccer, whatever. They're all passionate fans. They do not act like clowns like this and treat other fans like this. That's ridiculous. Grow up. If all you have to worry about is if someone doesn't like the video game that the people put out, then you don't know what real life problems are. And you need to go for a walk outside once in a while. And take a look around what's really going on in the world. People don't automatically come down, these are things that most rational human beings do not obsess about. 10-year-olds maybe. Oh, I hope Mario can get to the Bowser's castle. Even back then, people who like Mario but don't like Sonic, they don't hate on each other because one likes the other over the other. Wake up, mature up, grow up. Stop. I don't hate on the people who like another brand. I don't like how you act about it because you think that is how you should behave. That is not acceptable in society. It's not acceptable as a fan base, and it's not reliable, responsible, or reciprocated well. You make yourself look like clowns. You put the company in a bad light, and you make everyone else look at you like you're a bully. That's what you are. A cyber bully. And again, I do what I can to beat cyber bullies. I will always stand against bullying of every single kind. My wife loves AEW. My wife loves WWE. She loves NXT. She watches it all. She's been in the wrestling world too. I don't watch it with her. I don't have the same opinions as her. But I still love her and I care about her. We're married. But we can live and coexist because we don't force the other one to agree with what the other one says and does. Grow up. Let people boo and cheer how they want to cheer. Let people have their own opinions. And don't jump down their throat if they don't agree with what you have to say. Because you don't have a right to tell someone how they should feel. And you do not have any power to tell someone that they should agree with you. Because you have no opinion, no relevance, no authority how to make someone else think, feel, or anything else. Your opinion is your own. Their opinion is their own. End of story. Done. Thank you. Now, Ants, bring me to the part where I'm going to talk about some rising stars. Please and thank you. And changing the mood before we get going. Yes, folks, we are back. We're here. And now we're into our final stretch. This is kind of the part where I guess I do some shout-outs, theoretically, or I talk about some people that you guys should probably pay attention to. I didn't write things down today. You know why? Because I don't need to. There are people that I need to shout out and want to recognize that are all on the top of my head. One, Hellman Elementary School and Richard M. Bourne, they're still working on their film projects. If you guys can help them out, they're still looking for contributions to their film project. Find Hellman Elementary on Instagram. See what you can do to help them out. They'd really appreciate it. And you guys can be part of cinematic TV history as you're part of bringing that to life. And at the end of the day, that's huge. At the end of the day, you'll really make a difference in the lives of all of those people who put all the work into making it happen. So I really do, if you guys can help out the Hellman Elementary School people, I really do encourage you guys to do so. Thank you. Now, that being said, let's recognize a bunch of people. Now, at the beginning of the show, I had given an update on Gabriel Sehis, who was our guest last Sunday. Let you guys know that his video portion of his interview is up. Again, I want to apologize for the beginning getting cut off because, unfortunately, technical issues and remembering to push the record button. But, what a great young man he was. Very sound-proof individual. I think he's going to have a rising star. He's going to be a rising musician in the world. I also think I could see him on television or in film very soon. I think I should keep an eye on him. He is someone to keep an eye out on. I could actually see him crossing over to film pretty quick, in all honesty. Just in opinion. Another young man who is a rising star in the music world. We've not had him as a guest here. We're hoping to someday. is someone who I've talked about a few times on the show. And I do encourage you guys to go check him out again. And I do encourage you guys to give him a listen. He is up on YouTube. He is up on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Spotify. As our friend Gus Jeffers, who is up on Instagram, on Spotify, pretty much everywhere. Tremendous young man. He just came out his first singles album and whatnot. Gus is a tremendous young man, working hard to become a singer. Started out like so many of these other people. He puts a lot of work in, time in. Go check him out on Spotify. Gus Jeffers on Spotify or on YouTube. Tremendous young man. As I speak, I have, to my understanding, Henry Alniro Mena, and I'm not sure if the Pitbull is in action, but I believe Henry Mena of the Mena Boys is competing in a combat thing, a fighting, either a boxing match or some type of an event today. So I just wanted to pass along our best wishes to Henry, and we know that he's going to go in that ring and represent well, because when it comes to the Mena Boys on this show, on my on both on this podcast and on the Icons of the F4L, Henry and Jairo Mena, the Mena Boys, are two of the toughest young men on the planet, and I hope that they do well today. And I'm hoping to have a update on him and let you guys know some good news. Maybe we'll have them back on the show. They can give you the updates themselves. I know that's something we've been working on. They do want to come back on here. It's just a matter of finding the time. Again, two of the most polite young men you'll ever see or talk to, but also two of the most toughest young men you'll ever compete against. So I'm just happy I don't have to compete against them, knock on wood. So great young men. We hope them the best. Wish them the best as of today. They're in competition right now, and we're in their corner as always. Noah the Nightmare Tyndall has got a couple fights coming up in real life, not just on our show. And of course, we're always proud of the Nightmare himself. Always putting on a clinic. The Adele Boys are always putting on a clinic in everything they do. Always excelling at being the top of any sport. Over the last weekend, yesterday we did a kind of a surprise show, and one of my buddies in wrestling has heard some of the things I said about our roster being the best roster of anywhere, and as a kind of an inside kind of a joke, he said, "Okay, well, how about I give you a list of people and you put your best against our best, and we'll see what happens." And yesterday we put some of their best against our best. And we were quick to remind people why we have the best roster on the planet. I don't know if they lost any. I don't remember. I do remember yesterday, Easton became the United States champion. Philip Ricardo Jr. He became the Intercontinental champion after beating Gunther. The Mena Boys defeated Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to capture the tag team titles. Jaden and Lincoln Brooks, the Brooks Brothers Incorporated, defeated Gallus to become the NXT tag team champions. We put our titles against their titles, folks. And unfortunately, see, here's the thing. We don't have all that many titles. We only have, 2 male titles, technically. 2 tag team champions, 2 male champions. Because, again, it's all about one to be the best. That's why we eliminated all the little titles and combined a bunch of the other ones. Either you're in 2 different brackets, the Dream Masters Telenet Universal Championship or the Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix Championship. 2 different rosters, 2 different things, but everyone put on a show yesterday. Even the unbeatable Roman Reigns went up against the eldest of the Adele Boys, as Anthony the Hunter Adele showed and reminded people why the Adels are probably one of the most feared teams out there and one of the best leading rising stars in youth MMA sports. As Anthony Adel had no problem taking the title off of Roman Reigns. His first time in the cage with him. So there's that. And of course, we're talking about, our people are based on the real life people. And my friend said, hey, here's a list of people who, if you guys think we're the best, let's see it. Listen, our guys beat everybody. And the proof is up on YouTube. I just put that out yesterday. Facts are facts, I guess you'd say. But we've been asked to do some more, so maybe we'll do some more of these spot challenges, or us versus them challenges. Tomorrow our females are in action, so we have an all Dream Warriors show tomorrow. And some pretty good matches there. As a women's show that they are just as tough and just as dangerous as the males are, as hardworking and everything else. Great action we have tomorrow for the Dream Warriors. But on the 14th, we have a stack card on the 14th too, for that matter. As we have rematches. We've been getting a lot of great feedback about our title matches lately, and I'll tell you, they're based on real life people, and they're not, just nobodies. JoJo the bodybuilder is going to get a rematch against Big E, Elijah Furton, the new Dream Masters Universal Telenet champion, and they're going to compete one more time. The first time they ever faced each other was back on the 4th of July, and we have a new champion, which is incredible. Of course, now we're going to have a rematch on the 14th to see, what happens there. We also know who the number one contender is, too. We'll have to find out how that's going to work out. We also know that Noah, the Nightmare Tyndall, will be defending against the former Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix champion, Leo the Bull Curtis. We know that rematch will be in place, but we also know who the number one contender is after that, as well as the Grayson, the Super Duck Russell, is laying in wait for the winner of that. So we know that's going to be iconic, because either one, that's going to be a show stealer. And of course, everyone else I just mentioned, just on a regular basis, the match quality that everyone puts in on these shows is phenomenal. All of them 4 or 5 stars. Not that matters to anybody, but they're based on the real people, because they don't play around. They're real life icons of the F4L. So take notice and show respect. So again, congratulations to everyone. Thank you guys to everyone who is part of the icons of the F4L. Everyone who is so invested, has taken time out to give feedback, to offer updates, to whatever case may be. I want to thank everyone for their involvement. I also want to say we're also looking to add more people. Trying to get some fresh meat up there, I guess. We're also going to be adding some kind of comic relief as well, as we have certain 3 chipmunks who are about to make their debut soon. Yeah, 3 chipmunks. Again, on the Icons of the F4L on the YouTube show, you never know what's going to happen, who's going to show up, and we have no control over any of it whenever it does. So, keep that in mind. Everyone, I think that about does it for me today. I want to again say congratulations to everyone. Thank you guys all for taking time out of your Saturday afternoon to listen. I want to say this: show respect to everyone. Live your life the F4L way with love, care, and compassion. Understanding and respecting each other's differences. At the end of the day, that is how I live. And I encourage everyone to do the same, as the world will be a much better place if you've done so. Shout out to everyone who is an amazing individual. Help out Hellman Elementary if you can. Go see them on Instagram. Help them out. And everyone, may all your dreams come true from the F4L Headquarters Podcast. Peace, everybody.